It's time for the Hockey Writers Grindline, a weekly show covering everything Detroit Red Wings. Brought to you by our own iconic top line of Wings writers. Sit back and enjoy The Grind.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Grind Line here at the Hockey Writers. As always, I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and joined in by my defense partner, Devin Little, and also joined in by Delaney Rimer, returning to the show. Delaney, we'll start with you. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. Nice day out today here in Ohio, as nice as it can be, and been a good week.
Nice. And Devin, how's it going? Another week closer to the draft. We're closing in, or at less than 2 weeks, so it's coming.
Sure is. Dropped my top 64 draft rankings today, so draft is very much on my mind right now. But yeah, excited to do a show. Let's get this done, guys.
Yes, for sure. We will be talking about the draft later on in the show, thanks to Don's question. Just a little teaser there coming up. But yeah, let's get started. Let's go with our one good, one bad to start the show. Delaney, as in your return, what's a one good, one bad?
One good is NHL Draft is in less than 2 weeks, and I'm very excited to be able to be there this year. Very excited for that. And then one bad. That's a really good question. One bad. Summer's almost over. Back to school shortly. Well, I'm still in school. I had a 2-week break between graduating undergrad and starting grad school, but
well, congratulations on graduating, but you're moving on to a grad, so another one. So yeah. Work's not done, but congrats on your first step.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Devin, over to you. A good and a bad from the past week.
First off, be sure to tell Delaney congratulations down there in the comment section.
Yes.
My one good is going to be that, Matt, you are officially a part of the Red Wings team here, right?
Yes.
That's a development as of this week. Excited to have you. Welcome officially. Obviously, you've been on this show for quite some time at this point, but officially, welcome to the team. And then my my one bad is that the Toledo Walleye need a new head coach, but we'll get to that here shortly.
For sure. I'm excited to officially join the team. I have been obviously hosting the show, but now I am part of the Red Wings writing team. I'm working on an article right now, late round draft targets. So that's coming soon. So look out for that for my first. But that's a good for me. I'm excited to join the team officially, and covering 2 teams now that love their Swedes. So that's a great connection between the Canucks and the Red Wings. So I always going to be looking at Swedish players throughout both teams. So that's a good for me. And a bad is that we're after the draft. A bad is that the draft is not just, it is coming. That's not a bad, but after that, it usually kind of dies down. We do have the off season with free agency and all that, but we're getting to that point where it starts becoming a little hard to find things to write about. And that's not always a good thing, but that's my bad, because after the draft, it kind of activity starts dying down a bit after free agency and all that, the first week of free agency. And then we just kind of wait around for stuff to happen. And it's not always nice waiting. So that's a bad.
and this year we have a pretty below average free agent crop. So I feel like that's even going to be not as fun as it can be.
Yeah, especially with, one of the top guys, Patrick Kane, is going to be injured, his hip surgery and all that. So it may not be a hot commodity to start, but it's not the biggest high profile free agency. It's going to be obviously players signed, but there's not going to be big names like in previous years. So, but let's get started with the show and start talking about some big news that happened in this past week. And that's the Grand Rapids Griffins getting a new head coach, and a guy that's been in the system. He's coached the Toledo Walleye for quite a while. And that's Dan Watson. He's actually been part of the Toledo Walleye since 2009-10 as assistant coach. head coach since 2016-17. So, long time coming maybe to get a promotion to the Grand Rapids Griffins, and we'll see how he does there. But we'll start with you, Devin. What do you think about that development this past week? Is he a good fit for the Grand Rapids Griffins? I mean, obviously he knows probably some of the players because coming from the ECHL, but what do you think about the move?
Well, I'm glad that you asked me what I think of this development, because what this news brings to mind is actually an old Ken Holland quote from back in his time with the Red Wings. And what he used to say, what he liked to say, was that the Red Wings weren't just in the business of developing prospects, they're in the business of developing people. And that means that, coaches, Jeff Blashill was a Griffins or Red Wings assistant, Griffins coach, then became the Red Wings head coach. He's an example of that. Steve Yzerman goes from being a player to I forget what he was exactly, VP of hockey ops or something like that.
Yeah.
Was in the front office, then obviously goes off to Tampa Bay, becomes a general manager, then comes back to be the GM of the actual Red Wings. So, examples of that. I think that Dan Watson's just the latest example of a person being developed by the Red Wings. Obviously, like you said, Matt has been with the Walleye since they were a thing, literally forever. Was on Derek Lalonde's staff when Lalonde was the head coach of the Toledo Walleye. I think that played a big role in this decision. We some cohesiveness between the head coach in Grand Rapids and Detroit. That was not the case this past season with Ben Simon. And I think that generally speaking, you like it when if your AHL team performs or at least plays similarly to how the NHL team does. And yeah, just honestly, even from just Watson's perspective, like you said, Matt, this is a long time coming. I'm sure he was overjoyed when they extended the offer to make him the Griffins head coach. So that's a big jump up. And with that comes a lot of expectations, right? Griffins haven't won a playoff round since they won the Calder Cup in 2017. That's a long time, and the Griffins have had talented players in that time, and nothing to show for it. Red Wings are trying to round the corner in the rebuild, and Watson's going to be the guy who now is in charge of shepherding the next wave, right? I think it's a good fit. I think it's a good hire. Excited for Watson, excited for the future of Griffins hockey, and excited that the Red Wings once again developed another person, not just another player.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, I love it when, kind of a progression from, it's like he's moving up too. It's you move up from the ECHL, whatever, AHL and the NHL. We'll see if that happens with him. Could end up being in the NHL at some point. But right now, it is promotion for him and long time coming. Delaney, over to you. You're familiar with the Walleye. You've been, probably that's your most recent experience watching them. Very familiar with Dan Watson, I'm assuming. What do you think about the hire and him taking over the Griffins behind the bench?
I had a feeling that's what was going to happen once the Walleye season ended this year, because the Griffins needed a change from what I can tell, because it seemed like they have all the pieces that they need to go forward, but something was missing. And when you have that many talented players on your roster, that gives you kind of the guess that it has to be a coach that they need to add into the mix to get things moving forward. I don't personally have a way to watch the Griffins, so this is just an outsider's looking in, if you will, but Watson seems like the perfect guy to fill in there, because I'm looking at this article here and it says that he has coached I believe it's 59. Is that what it said? 59 future or current Griffins players, 56 or 59. So that's a lot. That's a lot of them. So he's very familiar with them and he has the work ethic. The Walleye did not miss the playoffs when he was their coach. Never missed the playoffs as head coach, and then Kelly Cup finals twice, which is huge, and then 3 division titles. He was very successful here in Toledo, so it should translate just fine at the AHL level, and hopefully he's able to bring in that new fresh perspective, and he knows what winning means and he knows what it takes to get into the playoffs and be successful in the playoffs, even if the Walleye fell flat the last couple of years here. Yeah, no, he should be great for the Griffins. I don't really have anything bad to say about that other than Toledo needs a coach. Obviously, you take a coach out, you need to bring a new one in. Maybe they'll promote someone who's an assistant coach, or I don't even know what the ECHL coaching market is, honestly. Who knows who's going to slot in there, but yeah, no, he had a winning record his entire career in Toledo. Awesome guy. We loved him here. And he was great with the team, great with the players, great with the community. So that'll be really exciting to see him at the AHL level.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he kind of. The thing is like you said, he's coached a lot of the players, and Sebastian Cossa was his starter. Could end up being with the Grand Rapids next season, and that would be interesting to see. Of him kind of moving up with him, which would be kind of cool. And a lot of the players that played for Grand Rapids played for the Toledo as well last season. So a lot in the playoffs. Emil Viro was there. I believe Sabrango as well. I mean, there's going to be quite a few players that he's had coached already, which is kind of it's a nice thing to have.
Yeah,
both the players and him, right? So
yeah, especially coaching them in that playoff environment, like Cossa, Sabrango, and Viro were all there, just to name a couple. And then there's Letheman too. You can't forget about him, 2023 ECHL goaltender of the year. He worked with two really strong goalies who will probably be making cases for the Griffins in coming years, especially with Brodstrom heading back to Sweden, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I'm fact checking myself here. He coached 56 future or former Griffins, Watson did, and 9 ECHL, all ECHL team members since 2016. So I think he's going to be perfect. Not perfect, but really good.
Yeah, pretty obvious. It seemed like an obvious choice to kind of him moving up to the Griffins. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does there. All right, our first off the rush. Delaney, you said you don't know what type of coach. I was going to be off the rush question. So Devin, do you have a name that you kind of looking at that could potentially take over the Walleye, or are we kind of up in the air on that?
Oh man. Okay.
Caught us both flat-footed.
Yeah. Oh man.
Off the rush supposed to be.
Exactly. This is the most pure off the rush question we've had in a minute. I am going to say Alex Tanguay. Why not? He's he hasn't had the opportunity to be a head coach at the pro level. I'm pretty sure that's correct. He's just been an assistant, so why not let him be the guy in Toledo?
Yeah, it's a good choice. Delaney, you have someone that kind of comes to mind now, or
we're gonna play it super safe and go with current Walleye assistant coach Alden Hirschfeld.
There you go.
There we go.
He's already there, so why not give him the bump? Since we bumped someone up, let's bump someone else up and just carry on the pattern, since I truthfully do not know the ECHL coaching market or any NHL coaches that have kind of gone rogue and wanted to go to the ECHL for whatever unknown reason. So I'm gonna stick with Hirschfeld. He's a local kid. Why not? He's from
not a bad choice. I think that could be definite possibility for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a good off the rush. All right, let's pay the bills. Before we move on to our comment corner, we got a couple questions. Here's a message from the Hockey Writers.
Interested in writing for the Hockey Writers? If you have experience writing about hockey, are passionate about the sport, and are looking to take your writing to the next level, the Hockey Writers could be the place for you. Here at THW, you will have the opportunity to hone your craft at one of the world's largest and most respected hockey publishers. You will have control over what you write, be able to seek out media credentials, and be supported by a large network of writers and editors. Plus, you'll get paid for doing it. If you're interested and want to know more about team openings and requirements, please visit the Write for THW page on the Hockey Writers website. A link to that page is also listed in the description.
All right, as we said, comment corner, two commenters that always comment. Our first one by Lord Venom. Thanks for commenting. You haven't commented in a while, but of course, we always love your comments. So this is a great one. We'll start with you, Delaney, on this. His question is, what about pursuing William Nylander in a trade with the Toronto Maple Leafs? And the Maple Leafs are in a bit of we all know they're in a bit of in flux a bit. They got a new GM. Not sure what they're going to do with the core players. William Nylander is probably the most common target that seems to be out there, that he could be the most guy to be moved. Do you think the Red Wings should go after him? And what could it cost to actually get this guy from Toronto if he is on the block?
Well, I personally like the vision of Nylander to Detroit more so than the people saying, "Oh, we want Austin Matthews." No, no, be realistic here. But he's coming off of a career season. He had 87 points, 40 goals, 47 assists, and that's nothing to turn your nose up at, especially for still a young player, if I remember correctly. But one thing that I had entertained way back in the day at this point was having Bertuzzi in a trade for Nylander way back when that was still a possibility. Feels like ages ago now. But I don't really know what we could fork over that would be Toronto's equivalent. I don't know how much they'd be wanting for him, since he is, I think, part of that core for Toronto, although I could see him being the most likely to be moved out of that core group, because I feel like he could get a good value for them and still bring in someone strong without them losing something like huge, without them losing an Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner kind of player, because I feel like they hold on to those guys more. Maybe this might be me being painfully optimistic. Toss in some Philip Zadina, maybe just kind of shoot him out. Not opposed to that. And maybe a couple prospects. I don't want to give up too much for him personally, but he would be a valuable addition, a 40 goal scorer. We didn't have anyone like that, did we?
Not 40 goals, no.
No, I was going to say there was no 40 goal scorer on the Red Wings roster. So any guy that could do that would be kind of a no-brainer if it's reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is about Nylander is that he's also on a pretty good contract right now. He is obviously, I think it's a couple of years. He's going to be due for probably a big raise if he does another 80-point season or something. But I mean, I don't know, like it's going to cost a bit. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know if the Maple Leafs are actually shopping him. He just seems to be the guy that is talked about as being the guy that could be traded. But Devin, what do you think about William Nylander? Of course, Swedish. So, I mean, obviously the Detroit Red Wings would probably be interested, but what do you think about them pursuing him in a trade?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head there with the contract. I think that's kind of the biggest reason why he's the one that gets pinpointed to be moved. It's really hard to move a $10 million contract, an $11 million contract. And that's what you're dealing with if you're moving Matthews or Tavares or Marner. Whereas Nylander still getting paid, but not to the same degree. So I think that's kind of where that just kind of comes from. And to that point, it's not that the Red Wings don't have the money to absorb a big contract. They could totally go after Marner or whoever if they wanted to. But the big reason why I don't think this actually is going to happen, and it's kind of contradicts the whole argument about going after Alex DeBrincat. But Toronto and Detroit are division rivals, right? And I think that for Toronto to send William Nylander, who is a part of their core, to another team, they wouldn't want to send him to a team that they play 3 or 4 times a season, right? Like that's your worst nightmare, is the guy you trade is the one who buries you in a playoff series or whatever. So I don't like if Toronto's making that deal, 2 things need to happen. One, either Nylander's like forcing his way to Detroit, which I don't think that would happen, but crazier things have happened. Or two, Detroit's like throwing everything in the kitchen sink at them and saying, we want this kid, we want Nylander. I don't think they're inclined to do that. I don't think they need to do that. It would be great to have Nylander for all the reasons you both have said. I think he'd really, he'd add some serious star power to the lineup. But for what the Red Wings would have to pay, I just don't think it's feasible. To kind of like backtrack here and like make my point make sense here. With like the DeBrincat stuff, he's from Michigan. He could very well force his way there, and it kind of makes sense. And they have the money to make that happen. Whereas Nylander, like I said, he'd have to force his way to Detroit for that to even be a thing. And I just don't. There's not the same draw there that there is with a guy like DeBrincat. But I don't know. It's a fun thing to think about. I think he and Raymond would do very well together. I think Raymond and Casper would do really well together. But I don't foresee it happening.
It'll all. And the thing is like I said, it's not for sure that he's being shopped. It's he's being there's a lot of teams that are that would target him. It's not going to be just the Red Wings that are going to be in there. And what they want for him, I do agree with Delaney that is probably going to take a couple prospects. I would say a first round pick is going to be included in that. You would think. I mean, this is an 80+ point player. This is a guy under 30. He is a legitimate top 6 talent. So, I mean, it's not like he's going to be cheap, and there's going to be a lot of teams that may be able to, I don't know. I think the Red Wings can definitely play ball with a lot of the teams to be able to give, top prospects, first round picks and stuff. So you never know. We'll see. But I do agree with Devin. I don't think it's happening. I think DeBrincat's a more realistic, maybe target. But we'll see what happens with both him and Nylander. So it's going to be interesting to kind of follow those two storylines throughout, not just in the offseason here, but next season as well.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a 10-team no trade list.
There's another
Nylander,
there,
so maybe he's very anti-Michigan, doesn't want to be in Michigan. You never know what teams are on a player's 10-team no trade list, so who knows? That could completely squash out any hope of him coming to Detroit, but we would just have no clue and blindly talk about it anyway.
Shoot, if he was just like the worst 10 teams in the league last season, that eliminates Detroit.
It'll depend if he wants to join a contender, and that's the thing, or keep with a contender, because Maple Leafs obviously are still, I think. But okay, well, let's move from trades to the draft, as we always are going to be talking about the draft until it happens, and then we'll be talking about who they picked. But this is still like, who will they pick? And Don not just returns. He had a question last week as well, but Don, thanks for another question. This is a great one. Devin, we'll start with you. Which of these players would you like Detroit to draft, and why? I know you've done targets on a couple of these guys. So these are the players: Ryan Leonard, Oliver Moore, Dalibor Dvorsky, Reinbacher, or Axel Sandin Pellikka. Obviously there's 2 defensemen in there, and then you got 3 forwards, all around the range of where the Red Wings could pick. So who do you like from that list there?
This is where I should just pull up my rankings and be like, well, who's the highest ranked?
Yeah.
There you go. That's who it is, and that's why. And if that is what I'm going to do here, then I'll say Dalibor Dvorsky, because I have him ranked 7th. So if you get him at 9th, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And also, when we did that mock draft 2 or 3 weeks ago, that's who we picked at 9th, was Dalibor Dvorsky. I do think he's a good fit there. So I can kind of default there, but I will throw out 2 other names I want to discuss. One is Oliver Moore. I talked about him a little bit during that mock draft, and I'll talk about him a little bit more. His ceiling's Dylan Larkin.
Yeah.
Who's Dylan Larkin play for? And I talked about it on that episode too, like built-in mentor. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think Oliver Moore is also the type of player that brings you out of your seat. His speed, his skating is fantastic. His ability to make plays at top speed too. That's kind of what makes him makes him a top prospect in my mind, because it's one thing to be fast, it's one thing to have skill, but if you can combine the two, you're talking about the McDavid types of players, but he's not McDavid. That's not what I'm saying. Red Wings need players that sell tickets. Oliver Moore would sell tickets. And then the other guy I'll throw out is David Reinbacher. And the reason why I say David Reinbacher, I do think he's the top defenseman in this draft. And I think that there's a group of 3, maybe 4 defensemen in this draft that like have a really good shot at being like legitimate top 4 guys. Reinbacher's the best of them. If you miss your shot with those 4 guys, then you're getting into territory where it's like, yeah, these guys could be something, but you're not anywhere near as confident about it. So if you're going to get one of these guys, you got to, shoot your shot when you have it. I think that they could get, we took Nylander in that mock draft. I think he'll be available at 17. Maybe not. But I think if you take Reinbacher at 9, assuming he's available, you've got a quality defensive prospect, and you are basically done building your defense. You can just fill it in and fill in the rest from here on out. You got Edvinsson, Zator, and Reinbacher, you're good to go. And then the other side of that too is that then at 17, there will still be plenty of good forward prospects available, some of which that I think have a shot to be top 10 guys when we rewind the clock in 5 years and look at how the draft played out. I like the group of forwards that will be available at 17 a lot better than I like the group of defensemen. And that's why I think that it's not crazy to suggest the Red Wings should draft a defenseman at 9. Get the best player at the positions you need while you have the opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. I think I really like Oliver Moore. He's, like you said, that speed is just insane. There has been talk that that speed is close to McDavid type speed. There has been some people that have said that. So I mean, not saying he's going to be McDavid, but his speed is close to what it is. Yeah. And that's exciting because McDavid is just ridiculously fast. And then you got guys like another guy I really like is Ryan Leonard, because he'd be a great pick for the Red Wings as well. I think he's that great two-way center. Has high upside as well. I think, and even saying with those defensemen, I think Reinbacher, if you're going between Sandin Pellikka and Reinbacher, I choose Reinbacher because he's the more well-rounded defenseman. And there is talk that Sandin Pellikka could actually drop into, I don't want to say he's going to be around that 17, but he may.
If he's there. Ooh.
Jeez, yeah. I don't know how Red Wings fans would think if they would go Reinbacher and Sandin Pellikka in the first round. No. I don't think that'll happen to get both those defensemen, but I think they would split between defense and forward. But yeah, like you said, there's a lot of great prospects in that first round to grab. So Delaney, what do you think about these 4 names: Ryan Leonard, Moore, Dvorsky, Reinbacher, Sandin Pellikka? Who would you pick from those guys if you were up there picking?
Oh boy. Okay, so I'm pretty high on both Leonard and Moore currently. They're both very reliable looking prospects, and they both seem to have like a really good trajectory, and they both seem to be developing at a good clip that will put them in the NHL in not too many years away. They're pretty close once they're drafted, I would say. They both have the potential to be in the league, which is something important to consider when you're drafting that high up in the first round. Like you guys were saying, Oliver Moore, he's more of that speedy, fun to watch kind of player, but with Leonard, I would say what you're getting with him. He seems to be one of those guys that's just a solid prospect that worst case scenario, you'd be getting like a bottom 6 guy out of him.
Yeah.
And like, if that's worst case scenario,
that's not bad.
That's not bad at all. Plus going to Boston College, gotta stay true to that.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking, if Sandin Pellikka is still there at 17, why not?
Yeah,
no, absolutely.
If there's some odd chance that he could drop that low, because some ratings have him as high as 10th, some have him as low as 17th.
Yeah.
So that's within Red Wings batting range.
Mhm.
If they're not gonna, who knows, he could even trade up a few picks. We don't know what's gonna happen still. That 17 could become like a 12, could become a 13. You don't really know, but any pick under that first round pick that the Red Wings have, if he's still floating around, that's not a bad pick at all.
No.
Getting a defender like that in the first round under 10th, why not? Honestly. But between Leonard and Moore, it's kind of a toss-up, but I'd lean towards Leonard just because of that reliability factor in my brain, because I feel like he's just solid and he's progressing at a pace where you can tell what he's going to be eventually.
Yeah.
And that's something that's valuable when you're drafting someone. You don't want too many questions with that first round pick of the draft.
They can't afford to miss with that ninth pick.
No. You can't swing and miss in the top 15 picks.
No, absolutely not.
No. And Leonard seems like a safe pick to me. I think he's that's not bad. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but he seems like a guy that you'd be like, you're sure, like you said, you're sure he's probably gonna be an NHL player. It's just, what's his ceiling? And his floor is pretty good. I mean,
if a floor is a bottom 6, that means the ceiling is a top 3. Like that's like floating in the same range. If you're like, oh shucks, he'll be a third liner at worst case scenario or something. That's nothing to be upset about. Plus he's versatile. He can play on the wing. He can play center.
Well,
we need centers and we need wingers. So why not?
One thing I want to say about Leonard, I said that Moore is the type of player that sells tickets. Leonard is the type of player that sells jerseys. And that's important too.
Yeah. He's the type of guy you want on your team if you're going to win cups too, right? So
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, if we draft him, that gives me someone to put on my Boston College jersey that's currently playing.
There you go. There you go.
Bonus. It's going to be interesting to see if any of those guys, what the Red Wings pick, or they go off the board and pick Marco Kasper, who, I mean, there was starting to be more of a trend that Eisman was going to go with Kasper, but Moritz Seider wasn't the guy that everyone was going to be thinking. He may just go off the board and pick someone who we don't know. We'll find out. But yeah, it's going to be fun to see who they pick in those two spots. Like I said, I'd be actually happy with any of these players. Dvorsky's an intriguing prospect, as you know, time has gone with the World Juniors as well. He was really good for Slovakia. He'd be an interesting pick there too. So I think we'll be happy. I think we're going to be happy with whoever the Red Wings pick at 9 and even 17, because this draft is just so many interesting prospects to pick. So it's going to be fun. Okay, off the rush. And I think it's going to be another interesting off the rush, because sometimes this takes a bit more time to think about. But and we'll start with you, Delaney. Do you have anyone that you think, like Yzerman has been able to pick some guys in the 3rd, 4th round that are interesting? Carter Mazur, 3rd round pick. Soderblom, 6th round pick. Who do you have as a late round gem that he could actually do you have one that you think he could pick that could end up being that type of player?
That's a really good question. As of right now, no, I haven't gotten that far, in all sincerity, but it's also so hard to predict with how Yzerman drafts people. Like, sure, maybe he went with Carter Mazur, he's from Michigan, let's pick that one. He just sees Michigan, it's like, yep, that. Who knows? I'm trying to find like a list of prospects or something.
I think I gave Devin some time to do that.
Yeah, no, you put me all
I should have picked Devin first.
No, seriously, he's the one who knows what's happening with the later rounds. But let's see. Well, not Connor Bedard. That's a no. That's too high up. 3rd round. Okay. Where's a name that I recognize?
This is
I
the
know some of these
slowest
words.
off the rush right now. We're like
This
skating
is
really slow.
none of the off the rushes are rushes. It's more of a let's see if we can take them out by the kneecaps.
Yeah, yeah, we're
A long
recycling.
cycle.
Playing the perimeter.
This is a Sandin
Oh.
shift right now.
Oh yeah, we'll get there eventually. I'm just looking to see if any of these names even ring a bell. Oh boy.
All right, I'll come back to you, Devin. Do you
Yeah,
have
no, hit Devin. He knows what's up. He knows what's happening.
I've got two. One of them's a Swede, Felix Nilsson out of Rogla's J20 team. Obviously there's the Swedish thing, but also he's kind of a nifty little not super huge, but also not super small. Center prospect that I think honestly plays a game that reminds me a little bit of Jonathan Berggren. I don't think he has the same upside that Berggren has, but I like the way he plays on the offensive zone kind of reminds me of Berggren, especially in his days in Sweden. And then the other guy I want to throw out is Connor Levis. Partially because I wrote his prospect profile, but also because he's kind of a he's another forward prospect that kind of would provide some dynamics that Irving's lack. That he plays kind of a maximum effort type of game. I don't see him being anything more than like a middle six forward at best, but he's going to be a player that kind of like pulls a line together. He'll do like the dirty work. He'll get a lot of second assists. And I think that that's the type of player you should be shooting for in the third, fourth, fifth rounds.
For sure. Delaney, you got someone or you?
I got one name as of right now. So Casey Middlestad's brother, Luke Middlestad. That's one that just caught my eye when I was looking here. Played one season with the University of Minnesota. Had a good season, especially for a defenseman. He had 5 goals, 16 assists through 38 games. And then at the World Juniors, he had 3 assists through 7 games, which again, as a defenseman, getting on the score sheet that much in a short time in that kind of a tournament, that's got to be some kind of a compliment to your abilities. And he seems like an all-around solid player, has 2 brothers in the game. And it looks like he's going to be floating around that 3rd round, maybe top of the 4th round range. So he wouldn't be amiss to take someone like that. He looks like he's going to pan out to be a solid defenseman, maybe not like a top 4. Worst case scenario, he's a last pairing defenseman one day, but AHL depth is still important when you're drafting. So I wouldn't say he would be a bad choice for that late.
For sure. He's also, I believe he's an overager too, because he was eligible last season, I believe, unless I'm thinking of someone else.
Yeah, he's 20.
Yeah, so he's an overager. But those are the guys you pick towards that round, 5th, 6th, 7th round. So interesting to see. I'll give a couple, and these are on my list on the article I'm writing right now. Ian Scherzer, from Austria, also played for Rogala, so I'm sure the Red Wings have seen him play. I was really good at the World Juniors, probably was Austria's best player throughout the tournament, and really hard worker, that type of lunch pail type forward that I'm sure Chris Draper likes, because he was that type of player. So, and he's director of amateur scouting, so I'm sure he would like him. And like I said, he played for the same team that Marco Kasper played for in his draft year. So the J20 league. So I think Ian Scherzer would be an interesting pick. And then a couple other guys. Actually, I'll just give one. I don't want to give away my whole thing. So Ian Scherzer is my only one. You can read the article for the other 4.
I got another one. I came up with another one.
All right.
Because why not throw it in there? We know we like to draft fun names around here. Mazden Leslie.
Oh, I love him. Yes.
Fun name. He had an awesome season. Another defenseman, it looks like 66 games, 12 goals, 38 assists in the regular season.
Right hand shot.
Defenseman that can get points. Yeah. We need righties. anyone with a right hand, why not? I was at the equipment sale. Every single stick was a left-handed stick. It felt like we need some righties in the mix.
Yeah. Mazin Leslie's a great one. I didn't want to pick other guys that I've talked about too much. I wanted to throw out some new names in the article. So Mazin Leslie is not part of that, but he'd be a great pick because, like I said, he's one of those guys that he may not be the best defensively, but he's got a lot of offensive skill. He's one of the better guys that jump up in the rush and great on the power play. So he'd be an interesting guy, and he is projected to be in the 6th, 7th round because he's not that good defensively, but that can be caught. So I've said that many times.
He's at 125 on the list I'm looking at right
now. He's down there. He's not.
Why not?
He's
grab
not ranked
him while
high
we're down there.
But he will get drafted because that offensive skill, I think a team will take a flyer on him for sure. All right.
Yeah,
well, that's an off the rush that took a Sandin shift. We finally scored a goal or something. That was patience, and you get there. All right. Well, that's another episode of the Grind Line. Thanks, Delaney. Thanks, Devin, for joining in on the discussion. We, talking, recent news. We talked the draft. We talked trades. So lots of great stuff again in the episode. Leave your comments below. Who do you believe the Red Wings should draft out of those 5 names that we threw out there that Don wants opinion on? So give your opinion. Who do you like on that spot? Do you think the Red Wings should go after William Nylander? Again, sound off in the comments. We always love the comments. Keep them coming for our comment corner as well. And keep it locked on the hockeywriters.com. We got, like I said, the draft is less than 2 weeks away, and we'll find out what the Red Wings will do with those picks. Will they pick all 3 second rounders? Will they trade them away? We'll see. And we are planning a big prospect episode. We'll have some other people on the show, hopefully, to talk Red Wings prospects, talk who they're going to draft. So that hopefully will be happening. Obviously, it can only happen next week because that's our last show before the draft, and we'll start talking about what they actually did at the draft. So thanks again for watching. Follow us on Twitter at THW Grindline, and of course, keep it coming with the comments. So until next time, we'll see you on another episode of the Grindline.